So we're going to continue with our program for this next portion, which is extremely important. I am going to invite up Dr. Charlotte Harrington Farmer and say to Mwapamiko Mwapata, United Kingdom, Massachusetts tribe, to do the honors of presenting Dr. Jeremy Banks. This is like a title chief, like Dr. Harrington Farmer, take 2 hours up, please. Come on. Round of applause, please.
Once again, it's a great honor to be here, and I'm just checking everyone can hear me. This is going to be a 2-part presentation. I'm going to go first, and then I'm going to hand over. So, Dr. Bangs Dr. Bangs is the director of the Leiden American Pilgrim Museum. Sorry, I just skipped. Leiden American Pilgrim Museum Foundation. He was born in Oregon, but has lived in the Netherlands in Leiden for over 30 years. Thank you. Does he pass paperwork? After studying at the University of Chicago, he completed his degree work at the University of Leiden and in his PhD in 1976. He's a man of many talents, a talented artist, musician, and he's published articles on a plethora of topics, including the Dutch artwork and architecture, and both Dutch and American history. In 1980, as an American historian working in the Leiden archives staff, he was asked to answer visitors' questions about the pilgrims, a topic which at that point to him was relatively new, and one that has inspired decades of further meticulous research and countless publications. And I think I'm fair to say that we're all very grateful that he got asked that question that has led to so much of his inspiring research. He served as the curator of the Leiden Pilgrim Document Center of the Leiden Municipal Archives between 1980 and 85. He was the chief curator of Plymouth Foundation, now between 1986 and 1991, and he was the visiting curator of manuscripts at Pilgrim Hall Museum between 1994 and 1996. He was the visiting distinguished professor of art history the Arizona Center for Medieval and Renaissance Studies in 1986. And in 1997, Dr. Bangs founded the Leiden American Pilgrim Museum. The city archives in Leiden houses the original documents of the formal request by the pilgrims to stay in the city of Leiden. As well as the signatures of Bradford and other pilgrims, Dr. Bangs has written and edited many books about the pilgrims. And really, we would be here for 4 hours, I feel like, if I went through each of his esteemed publications, but I'm just going to pick a couple. So one of the things I think that makes Dr. Bangs' work so special is that he is a meticulous paleographer and transcriber, as I shared some of that with you earlier, and he's done a stellar job editing the 17th century town records of the town of Scituate. He's worked on the town records of Easton, Sandwich, Marshfield, Duxbury, Bridgewater, Dartmouth. He's also done work on the Plymouth Colony's private libraries and also colony records and deeds. There's 2 books in particular that I want to highlight to you this afternoon. Firstly, Strangers and Pilgrims, Travellers and Sojourners, Leiden and the Foundations of Plymouth Foundation, that first came out in 2008. Perhaps most pertinently for our topic this afternoon, in 2002, he published Indian Deeds, Land Transactions in Plymouth Colony, that has been transformative for Indigenous communities in the area as they reconcile with their history. I can say personally, Dr. Bangs' work has certainly shaped my own scholarship and my own teaching. I was fortunate enough to meet Dr. Bangs at the British Group in Early American History Conference way back in 2008 in Manchester, UK. I was in the 2nd year of my PhD and presented at my very first academic conference on my work on descent and identity in 17th century New England. And Dr. Bangs, I think it's fair to say, pushed me to rethink how I conceptualize my own work, whilst directly challenging me within the framework. And I think whilst at the time it was quite hard to kind of figure this out as a grad student, it certainly, I think, has made my work stronger for his input. I distinctly remember when Dr. Banks gave his talk at the same conference in 2008 the next day, he was slightly mesmerized and in awe as he sat at the front with what seemed like piles of books in front of him. And as he started to talk, he explained that these were all of the books that he'd written. And this was 2008. Think about how much he's accomplished between 2008 and today. Dr. Banks then is, I think, a rare scholar in that he's had a significant impact in three key areas. Firstly, within academic circles. Secondly, within the field of public history, and often academic history and public history there's a disconnect. I think he's done a good job trying to bridge the two. And thirdly, and arguably most importantly, he's had impact within Indigenous communities. Dr. Banks' tireless dedication to research has meant that he's been able to help countless tribes around the area. And what I would like to do is to hand over to my esteemed colleague over here who's going to speak to that particular impact. Thank you.
I'm seeing Dr. Banks on the screen, so you must excuse me. For me, it's very emotional. I haven't seen Dr. Banks since 2018, when he flew here and we got a chance to personally meet. He was giving a lecture at the American Pilgrim Hall Museum in Plymouth. And truly, everything that Dr. Farmer has stated in her talk just briefly about Dr. Banks is true, and then some. I can personally say that Dr. Banks has been very influential in turning written historical records into encouraging and supportive physical action for tribes here in the Northeast, and especially for our tribe at Matakeesit. It wasn't only until about 2014 when I was at a powwow, and a young lady had said to me, how we're related, and I didn't know. I had no idea. And so she encouraged me to go look into who I was. And during that process, there was a spiritual process that took place for me, and there was also a physical process, which is, of course, looking at genealogical records and historical records. The spiritual part of that was that I was met by some ancestors, and they showed me this area that was known to be called Titicket, that was much forgotten by a lot of the tribes around the area. And I started to look into this, and I reached out to my great-grandparents who's passed away. She started to explain to me about the area of Titicket, so I started to look further into the research. And there I came across the Honorable Dr. Jeremy Banks's written information and some maps that he had published from the Indigenous book that was presented from 1619 to, I think, 1591. I believe, and it was on land transactions. And inside that book, and then I found ancestors that I descended from on a line that was called the Comstock family. And the Comstock family, there was a book that was written by an author by the name of Robert Nabbitt at the time, who passed away. I had an opportunity to read him before he passed. And he sent me this book called Comstock's The Last of the Matakeesits. And when I started to inquire more into this book, and also into the title of why did they name this family, if I still descend from this family of the Comstocks, why did they name it The Last of the Matakeesits? And there, our genealogist at the time reached out to Dr. Banks and CC'd him in an email. And sure enough, they pointed me, these other historians had pointed me to Dr. Banks's work. So I started to pick up his books, and when I say that, the work that Dr. Banks has transcribed and worked on has brought to real fruition and into real life, and has given breath to a real life nation of people. It truly has. What I mean when I say that is that all of his work added right up to our history and also our genealogy that really helped to create and give life back to the revitalization efforts of our tribal nation. And since then, I have learned so much from this beautiful man, far beyond just the history of looking at documents and documents being transcribed. But I learned how to be a resilient person because of Dr. Banks. He's taught me how to be resilient. He's been resilient in every effort from his lifetime experience in the historian world, and also just as a man with integrity, and a man with so much that he could share and teach all of us. And really, Dr. Biggs, you've become an elder in our tribe. Our young people, we just concluded our Heron Run ceremony on Saturday, and our youngest members, 4 or 5 years old, are asking, "How's Dr. Biggs doing?" Makes me happy. So you have truly impacted the lives of the Mattakees people, and I'm just honored, more than you know, to be able to stand here with the rest of the tribal nations and with other scholars who honor you and think of you in a very high esteemed way, such as I do myself. So I'm more than honored to present you with this Lifetime Achievement Award that was put together by the Project Cultural Equity Initiative in this 5th annual Indigenous Peoples Cultural Conference. Dr. Banks, we love you. Please give our love to Tony as well. We love her because she loves you. And we thank you again for all of your hard work, your commitment, and your dedication to help to raise these so-called lost nations up and to be what's called a true ally. We often ask that question. That question comes up a lot in our circles. People say, "What is a true ally?" Dr. Banks, I think that you have exceeded the example of what a true ally really is. And thank you to Bobby. Thank you.
Doctor would like to share some words. He's most certainly welcome to. If not, we will just honor you silently, sir. So whatever your choice is.
I'm thinking here.
He can hear. Can you unmute him?
I think you're on mute.
I believe you're on mute, Dr. Baker.
Okay, is it on now?
Very good.
No, I'm very honored to receive this recognition. And I must say that when I started the work on Indian deeds, I was hoping that you existed. And I'm delighted to know that you do, because this is what the historian was looking for. So I'm appreciative of not only being recognized by you, but just knowing you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Round of applause for the good doctor. And Dr. Carrick, would you mind just reading the award certificate that will be given to the doctor as well?
Sure. So congratulations once again, Dr. Banks. It's my pleasure to read the certificate to you. It's a Lifetime Achievement Award. This award is proudly presented to Dr. Jeremy Banks in acknowledgement of your life achievements as a researcher, scholar, truth bearer of the colonial era American Indian history. Presented the 17th day of April of the year 2021 at the 5th Annual International Indigenous Peoples Cultural Conference. Congratulations once again, Dr. Banks.
Thank you again.